He was known in every whisper of the city as the one who could end a love before it even began. The one whose smile promised forever, but delivered only silence and shattered trust. They called him the Love Buster, and he wore that name like a crown, forged from all the hearts he had cracked open. He believed love was weakness, and he proved it again and again, until no one dared believe in him. Until every girl who looked his way remembered the warnings, etched into midnight screens and friend group secrets. But then came the day when he saw her, the girl who walked through the wave. Storm, without looking back. The one who smiled at nothing, yet seemed to carry everything inside her eyes. She did not glance at him. She did not whisper his name. She simply existed, like a calm before a ruin. And for the first time, he felt something move inside him. Something that felt dangerously close to being human. He told himself she would fall like the rest, that he would play his game, make her heart beat fast, then watch it break. But when he approached her, when his practiced words spilled like poison mixed with honey, she only looked at him and said, "You sound tired of pretending." And her voice left him silent, in a way he had never been before. He followed her through days that stretched like quiet prayers. Each time he tried to speak, she gave no reaction. Only eyes that saw through his layers, like light cutting water. She worked in a little flower shop, tucked between towers of glass and neon. Her hands always touched petals with a care he did not understand. He thought to win her, he would first have to learn her rhythm. But her rhythm was not one that bowed to any beat he knew. He started bringing her small things, not to charm her, but to feel what it meant to give without purpose. A coffee left at the counter, a folded note with no name, a tune hummed near closing time. But she never thanked him, and somehow that made him come back more. He was used to being chased, to being worshipped or cursed, yet she did neither. She was unshaken, and that unshakenness began to unmake him. One night, rain fell heavy, and he found her standing outside, drenched, but smiling at the sky. He asked her what she saw in all that storm. She said, "The world is crying for people who forgot how." And he could not breathe for a moment, because her words struck straight into the armor he had spent years forging. He wanted to walk away, but instead, he found himself saying, "I forgot to." He did not plan to fall, but every word she spoke became a thread pulling at the knots of his heart. He started forgetting to lie, forgetting to play his games. He listened more than he talked. He dreamed more than he planned, and he realized he did not know what to do with honesty. She began to laugh near him softly, like she was allowing him a glimpse of sunlight through the cracks he made. She told him she had loved once and lost once, and now she lived only to see if something true could still grow in a world that feeds on half-promises. Yes. Nothing after that statement began to unmake him. One night, rain fell heavy, and he found her standing outside, drenched, but smiling at the sky. He asked her what she saw in all that storm. She said, "The world is crying for people who forgot how." And he could not breathe for a moment, because her words struck straight into the armor he had spent years forging. He wanted to walk away, but instead, he found himself saying, "I forgot to." Listen, you did not plan to fall, but every word she spoke became a thread pulling at the knots of his heart. He started forgetting to lie, forgetting to play his games. He listened more than he talked. He dreamed more than he planned, and he realized he did not know what to do with honesty. She began to laugh near him softly, like she was allowing him a glimpse of sunlight through the cracks he made. He told him she had loved once and lost once, and now she lived only to see if something true could still grow in a world that feeds on half-promises. He dreamed more than he planned, and he realized he did not know what to do with honesty. She began to laugh near him softly, like she was allowing him a glimpse of sunlight through the cracks he made. She told him she had loved once, wanted to tell her that he was the reason love died for many, that he was the ghost behind too many tears. But when he tried, her hand touched his cheek, and she said, "I already know. The whole city talks. But I wanted to see if you could ever stop breaking long enough to learn to heal." And her eyes did not judge. They only waited. And he felt himself crumble, not from her beauty, but from her mercy. Because no one had ever looked at him like he was worth saving. He started to bring flowers instead of words, silence instead of promises. And one morning, when he knelt to tie her apron, before she opened the shop, he realized the city's cruel title, Love Buster, no longer fit the man who now bowed to a girl with dirt on her hands and sunlight in her soul. It happened on the day she decided to leave the city. She told him she was going to find a place where heart still meant something, where people still believed in tenderness. He wanted to stop her, but he knew the Love Buster could not hold someone like her with words he had already broken. She stood before him beneath the same neon sky that once reflected his arrogance and now reflected his surrender. She said, "You were never meant to destroy love. You were meant to understand what it costs." And he felt his knees weaken as every memory, every cry, every name he had forgotten came rushing back. He dropped to the ground, not out of shame, but because his legs could no longer bear the weight of his own awakening. She reached out and touched his hair and said, "Stand when you are ready to build, not to burn," and walked away, leaving the scent of flowers in the air. He stayed there until dawn, until the city noise turned into bird song, and he finally stood again, no longer a destroyer, but a man who understood that love was never the weakness he feared. It was the strength he had been running from all along. And as the first light touched his face, he whispered her name, knowing she would never return, but also knowing she had already given him what no one else could. She had made the Heartbreaker kneel, so he could rise as something more than human, something whole. Days turned into seasons, and he became a ghost walking through the same streets he once ruled, not with pride, but with quiet purpose. The Love Buster no longer existed, only a man who spoke softly to strangers and helped lovers mend what they feared was lost. He began to fix what he had broken, one apology at a time, sometimes through words, sometimes through simple acts, like holding an umbrella for someone crying beneath a storm, or writing a letter for the ones who could not find the courage to speak. He opened the flower shop she once worked in, and kept her apron hanging on the wall untouched. The petals became his prayer, the scent of earth his redemption. The city began to whisper again, but this time they spoke not of the Heartbreaker, but of the man who taught them to feel again. He never saw her return, yet every dawn he placed a single white blossom on the counter facing the street, hoping maybe she would pass by and see that her faith had not been wasted. One evening, as the sun melted into the skyline, he found a note slit under the door. It read, "I am proud of the man who chose to kneel for love." And his hands trembled as he read it, for her handwriting had never changed. He looked to the street, empty yet alive with color and light, and he smiled for the first time without ache. He finally understood that love was not meant to be possessed or conquered. It was meant to be carried, like a flame, shared until the darkness gave up, and in that glow, the city that once feared love began to breathe it again, and he walked through it, not as a legend, not as a ghost, but as a reminder that even the one who broke every heart can still learn how to love forever.